As of today, there have been almost 800 officer-involved shootings this year in our country, and many of them right here in Florida.
Critics say a lack of de-escalating training may be to blame for the Sunshine State shootings, in part because it's not required in Florida. CBS 12 Investigates' Andrea Marvin found there's a call for stricter guidelines.
Hatfield is sitting in with
And I think that a lot of what's transpiring is a lack of the training.
Dennis McKenna is a former New York police officer and immigration and custom enforcement agent. He says there's not enough focus on de-escalation training.
The tool to use would be the body language. Is it a mental issue? Is it a medical issue? Or he's just not being non-compliance?
A recent police survey of 281 agencies found recruits train on average 58 hours for firearms and 49 hours for defensive tactics, but only 8 hours of de-escalation training. Requiring de-escalation training is being called for from groups like the NAACP. There's even been legislation introduced in Washington.
Do you think a lack of training is causing some of these officer-involved shootings?
I don't know that I can say that from the basic recruit level. They get a pretty solid base level of training.
Lee Spector is the director of the Criminal Justice Institute of Indian River State College. He says Florida Police Academy spend about 30 hours on behavior and nonverbal communication training woven into classroom work and role play. Guides provided by the state.
Stay right there. Sit down on your knees.
Once the recruits graduate, individual law enforcement agencies decide what is necessary for the new officers. We asked the Palm Beach Police if they provide de-escalation training. Trainer Philip Psalm says they incorporate behavioral training into their firearms recertification every 2 years.
Do you think the training should be mandatory?
Training should be mandatory. Depending on what type is where the, everybody needs to get together to determine what is the trends, what's best, and what's not.
Psalm says it also comes down to what police departments can afford.
They come with issues of staffing, so there's always this fine line of getting them enough training without disrupting the services that we have to provide.
Now, some law enforcement agencies already make de-escalation training mandatory. For example, the Chicago Police Department holds weekly classes to help train its entire force. Andrea Marvin, CBS 12.